stuck up out of the ground because it's kind of rounded on the top and then very steep sides. This Episcopalian was up on the top, and he just had to go over and take a look over the side, and he got up to the very edge, and just as he got a really good look, sure enough, he slipped, started down. Well, just before he fell to a certain horrible death, he reached out and grabbed onto a little pine sapling that was growing out of a crack in the rock. And it was hanging from this pine sapling. And he yelled out, he said, "Help, help, can anybody help me?" No answer. And he said, "Please, please, is there anybody up there that will help me?" And a voice said, "I'll help you." And the Episcopalian yelled out, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And the voice said, "I'm God. I want you to let go and let me handle it." And the Episcopalian, hanging from the branch, thought about it and said, "Is there anybody else up there?" We have little faith. Episcopalians. I want to tell you a story. When I was a young officer in the 82nd Airborne Division, which is at Fort Bragg, I was already Ranger qualified. And so my boss, my battalion commander, I get a call. I'm the battalion comms officer. And I get a call from the adjutant saying, "The commander wants to see you right away." Oh. So I came to the battalion headquarters, and I went in to see him, and he said, and he calls me Ranger. He said, "Ranger, we've enjoyed having you here in this battalion, but I have orders for you. You're leaving the battalion." And I thought, okay, yes, sir. Where am I going? He said, "You are hereby volunteering for Special Forces training." I'm thinking, I'm volunteering. He said, "Right, adjutant, you have the paperwork for him to volunteer this training?" I signed it. He said, "Great. Here's your orders. You report Monday morning for the assessment phase." And so it's been great having you here in the 1st of the 52nd. Blue Falcons, dismissed. Friday afternoon. So Monday morning, I read my orders, and the orders gave me a building and a time, and I reported in there, and it said, "Bring nothing with you. Just show up in uniform." I did. Well, they put us on buses and took us to a place at the far end of Fort Bragg, an old glider training base from World War II called Camp McCall. And we got out there, and they briefed us. This was the assessment phase. You had to get through the assessment, and they would have to decide whether they wanted you or not in Special Forces. So that first day, they moved us into some tents that had cots, and we had some orientations as to what Special Forces was all about. It was all men in those days, and one of the things that they explained to us is that after about 3 days of orientation and some training and stuff like that, we were going to conduct a night airborne operation. And that was not really a surprise to any of us because, I mean, after all Green Berets are parachutists qualified. Some are Ranger qualified, not all. But saying that we're going to conduct a night parachute jump was not a big surprise. I'd done a dozen of those already in the 82nd. I was not at all worried about that. But when we got to that point, they got us on the tarmac, and the C-130s came, and we were all in our parachutes and everything, and we get on the plane, and before we take off, though, they give us an orientation that this is mostly an administrative jump. We're going to jump into a drop zone. We are going to assemble administratively for accountability purposes. From there, we were going to be issued further instructions. And that's all they told us. All right, well, we went on. Around midnight, we jumped into the wilderness, and we all landed and gathered up our parachutes and made this administrative point. And that's when they said, okay, here's your knife, your compass, your canteen of water, your water tablets. Anybody ever had those before with your water? Oh boy, this stuff was like chlorine, but it would kill anything in the water. If you drank too much of it, it'd kill you maybe. But so water tablets. The canteen pouch in those days even had a little tiny pocket on the side that you put your water. Your water purification tablets is what they were called. Anyway, gave us that, and gave us our first ration, which was a LRP. A LRP was a long-range patrol ration. It was not a C ration. It was not an MRE. It was a plastic bag with some rice in it and some dried beans and something else that was probably unrecognizable. But it was high-caloric, high-protein meal. But they only gave us one. And a flashlight. Flashlight had a red lens on it. And we were given strict instructions that the flashlight with red lens on it was necessary because you were going to have to make your own map. They did give us some paper and a pencil. You had to make your own map, and you could only use the red lens flashlight at night. If you ever took the red lens off the flashlight, what you were basically saying is, I quit. And that would then allow you to walk out to the nearest paved road and sit down, and sooner or later, a truck would come by and pick you up, and you were done. That means you had quit. I was wondering, what do you mean? It's starting to dawn on us. We were going out by ourselves. Well, we got on these trucks, and we went out, and they just started putting us out on, got on the back of the truck. Brian! Yes, Sergeant. Lieutenant, get out here. Here's your first set of instructions. Up goes the tailgate. Truck drove away. I'm standing there with my red lens flashlight trying to read my instructions. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning now. Read my instructions. And basically all it said was, go this far in this direction and find the ammunition can. Now, how big is an ammunition can? Not big. It was painted red. And in it, you will find your ration for the next day and a new set of instructions. All right. Off I went, into the dark. The problem was that about day 4, there was still no indication of how long this was going to go on. I was just finding the ammunition box, and now I'm tired, I'm pretty thirsty, and I've been drinking water that I was getting from swamps, filtering it through my pants or my shirt, and then putting water purification and putting it in my canteen, and then putting the water purification tablet and shaking it up, and that's what I was drinking, water. I wasn't about to just stick my head down in swamp water. That was stupid, right? So it's about day 4 or 5, and I'm getting along all right, I guess. I'm really tired because there was hardly any time to rest. You would pick up the instruction, find the can. Oh, here's the red ammo can. So I found it, open it up. Here was the ration. Oh, put some water in it and stir it up and eat that. And then pull out the next instruction. It would have a movement that was like 30 kilometers. Well, how am I going to get there by tomorrow morning? I got to leave right now. I'll rest when I get there. So by about day 4 or 5, I'm pretty fatigued. I'm really hungry. Pretty much dehydrated. I smell like the swamp. I'm completely camouflaged. My personal hygiene is completely shot, of course. Finally, though, on day 5, I get a set of instructions, and it's a short shot. It's like 6 kilometers. So I follow it, and it's broad daylight. It's like 10 in the morning, and I'm coming to a clearing, and I can hear voices up ahead. What? It must be over. There are voices ahead. And in fact, it led me back to this place at Camp McCall, where it all had begun. And so they had, as I came in there, they said, Ranger Brian, they said, check me off, go sit down over there under that tree in the shade. There's some fresh water. Help yourself to some fresh water. We'll be with you once everyone else has come in. Well, not many came in. Of the 50 of us that started, there were about 20, maybe 24 who came in. The others had quit. And so we're sitting around, the 24 of us sort of chatting, as we gather. We're all sitting around under these pine trees drinking water, and we think we're done. I guess this is, what's next? Well, they came over and they said, okay, Detachment 1 is Brian, Cabell, O'Connor, O'Donovan, blah, blah, blah. And they started naming off 12 guys. Okay, follow that, Sergeant. And then so we basically formed us up into 2 teams of 12 each. And we went up to an area, and there was a guy who looked like a doctor. He had glasses on and a white coat and a stethoscope and a clipboard. And he said, gentlemen, come over here. As part of our study, we want to measure how the effects of fatigue and loneliness and all of that dehydration has been on you over the past week. A week? I've been out there a week by myself. And so we want to know how strong you are. And so the test was, all you had to do was go over and pick up these weights and get it to your waist. And the weights were bars, steel bars, and with concrete blocks cemented on the end with numbers written on them. So, you start off with 75 pounds. That's not that big a deal. I would say, I was the average guy, and I got 150 pounds up to my waist. Now what? Well, then they moved us on over to another clearing, and there was this big, ugly telephone pole laying in the clearing, and it had written on it, 1 ton. And the instructor said, okay, here's your task. You need to figure out a way to move this telephone pole from here. And if you look through the trees over there, you see the drop zone at Camp McCall. Well, on the other side of the drop zone, if you look over there, can you see over there? We looked over there. Buses. He said, once you get this pole there, you're going to get on the buses and go in. And you will have successfully completed the assessment phase. We're motivated. All right, now, let's get this. Well, it's a ton. There's only 12 of us. We can only pick up about 150 pounds each. Picking it up is not an option because 12 times 150 is what? Who's the math major? 1,800 pounds. How much is a ton? 2,000 pounds. So let's just figure out something else. Let's roll it. Well, we're in a pine forest in North Carolina. The pine trees are spaced like 8 feet apart. There was no way we could roll this thing. That's not going to work. So, okay, let's see if we can get on one end and prop it up, and we'll flip it, and we'll just play like Tinker Toy with it, and flip. So we got it upright, and we pushed it, and it went, and caught in the tree next to it. Crap, now I'm going to pull it back out, and boom, back to the ground. So after about an hour of, you say an hour, it took you, we were tired, we were dehydrated. After about an hour, and we were all strangers to one another, after about an hour of frustration, somebody came up with a smart idea, and this was the best idea he could come up with. Let's get 6 on one side and 6 on the other, and let's see if we can just pick it up enough, and we'll run forward as far as we can until we drop it, and then we'll break. And then we'll pick it up and do that again, and sooner or later, we'll get out of the woods and across that drop zone and accomplish the mission and get on the bus. Well, no one had a better idea than that. Bless you. No one had a better idea than that, so we got 6 on one side and 6 on the other. And, okay, somebody, let's count it down, 1, 2, 3, and we'll lift. Okay, so everybody, let's start on the log. 1, 2, 3, and guess what happened? We picked it up and put it to our shoulders. Walked right out of those woods and across that drop zone to the bus on the other side. How can the sum of the parts not equal the whole? Individually, we should have only been able to pick up 1,800 pounds. And I swear this thing probably weighed more than 2,000 pounds. It was a big telephone pole. And yet we picked it up with no effort and carried it. And we weren't all, most of the guys were like me, not like Chris. I mean, you get 12 of Chris's, and they're going to pick that thing up right and break it in half in pieces, and everybody carried it on piece. But if you're a little guy like me, right? I mean, you're a big, strong, 6'2", 3. Not all guys like that, right? I used to when I was in school, I used to take the ball and hand it to guys like you to go run for touchdowns. But how can the whole be greater than the sum of the parts? And yet it is, in a very real kind of way. Here's the lesson of that. When we got over there and we dropped the log, turns out there was another group of guys waiting on the other side who were going to have to carry it back across the drop zone because their bus was where we had been. And they had just arrived at a different place. But here's the lesson. So we dropped the log, and the sergeant says to us, okay, gentlemen, get on the bus. You're going back to Bragg. And we all got on the bus, and he then gets on the bus, and I'll never forget what he said. The individual started this, and the team finished it. And today was the last time that you'll ever operate in Special Forces as an individual. You're always going to be part of a team. Because in Special Forces, we believe that together, everyone achieves more. And that's what's in the paper that I wrote for you. This is really important stuff. The concept of teamwork is one that permeates every successful culture. When we were all hunter-gatherers roaming around, people began to form family groups. And family groups began to form villages, or tribes, I should say. And tribes became villages. And what was it why were they doing that? Because they found out that they could feed themselves better, defend themselves better, take care of each other better. They could live better if they worked together as part of a team. And that is still so true today. It's teamwork, that makes all the difference. Now, what I want you to do is turn to that paper, the that I wrote for you. We're not going to waste any time talking about, the sugary stuff, It's teamwork that makes the dream work. Okay, right. What I gave you, though, are 4 of my own examples. And David, would you read the first quote there? Yeah, like Abraham Lincoln.
I don't like that man. I must get to know him better.
Talk about a leader in a tough situation. Newly elected and faced with a civil war. Half the nation had withdrawn from the Union. And you would think that, okay, there's all kinds of unity on the Union side, and there wasn't. Politics were as ugly then as they are today. And frankly, as an aside, I don't know why good people run for office anymore. I hope that some of you do someday, because you're all good people. But I don't know why people get into politics anymore, but I'm glad that some good people do. Abraham Lincoln had a nation tearing itself apart. And you would think that in his search for generals that could fight and win, and for political support so he could get the resources necessary to support not only the army in the field, but his own domestic programs. He was trying to be commander-in-chief and president at the same time in the middle of a civil war without having a lot of support on his side. And what he learned very quickly as a principled man was that when people agreed with things he said too quickly, he learned not to what? Trust them. He would much rather have a discussion with someone who had a contrarian point of view. And the reason, why do you think that he had that? Why do you think that was the reason? What was his reason? Why would he trust someone who disagreed with him more?
Because he knows it's honest.
He was looking for an honest opinion. And frankly, people who would agree with him too quickly, he learned they were really just trying to curry favor with him. They were the classic butt kissers, if you will, who did not have really the best interest of the Union foremost in their mind. They really had their own personal interest foremost in their mind. And yet Lincoln had a different view of things. What's the second quote? Lady, would you read the second quote to us?
It is amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. Harry S. Truman.
Yeah, do you remember the situation that Truman found himself in? Do you remember your history? I know history is a dying thing in our education system, but Roosevelt had been the president during World War II. And just before the end of the war, guess who died? President Roosevelt passed away. He had been ill, as you know, for more than a decade, and eventually it got him. And who was the vice president? Harry S. Truman. And who became the president and commander-in-chief? Well, that was President Truman. Who made the decision to use nuclear weapons to end the war with Japan? Was that Roosevelt? Nope. Truman. Yet Truman was the same guy who not only made tough decisions in World War II, a few years later, think about it, just a very few years later, another horrible conflict broke out between the North Koreans and Chinese and the South Koreans and the United Nations, of which, of course, the U.S. provided the preponderance of force. And things didn't go well in the beginning for the UN because it was a surprise attack, and the North Koreans were well armed and well equipped with the most modern equipment. all of which had come from, guess what, our allies in World War II, now enemies after the war, the Russians, the Soviet Union, I should say. And suddenly we've got this massive conflict, and we're either going to have to give up on a free and democratic South Korea, which had been part of the United Nations settlement of World War II just a few years before, either give up on that dream or push the communists back north and reestablish the status quo. And that became the strategic imperative. To do that, the United States brought forth its most important and experienced general officer to lead not only U.S. forces, but United Nations forces. Who was that? MacArthur, right. And, Bill Tody kind of let the cat out of the bag the other day because he put up on one of his slides, was MacArthur successful or not? Was he a successful leader or not? Well, he pushed the communists back out of Korea and back across. And then on his own initiative, though, he kept going. He went north of the 38th parallel and pushed them all the way back, the North Koreans, I should say, all the way up to the northern regions of North Korea, only to have a couple of million Chinese communists counterattack at that point, which was also a surprise to everybody. And eventually, when MacArthur came to Truman and said, look, you used those weapons to stop the fighting in World War II, it's time to use them again to stop the Chinese so we can settle this thing in Korea on our own terms. And this time, what was the decision Truman made? He didn't agree. He fired MacArthur and put somebody else in command. What do you think? Truman could care less who got the credit. He was not a man who cared at all about that. But he sure was interested in results. And he was thinking on a strategic level that very few of us will ever have to contend with, but that he had to deal with on every day of his presidency from World War II and the Korean War. Well, what do you think he meant when he said, it's amazing what you can get done if you don't care who gets the credit? What does that have to do with teamwork? If you're the leader and you've got a good team working for you, and somebody comes up to you and says, well, I could role play with any of you, couldn't I? Because you're all kind of militaristic in a way. I could role play with any of you. I could say, hey, Margot, great job today. I've never seen a training exercise run better. Congratulations. And I know you're going to respond to me and say, and let me give the credit where the credit belongs. Yeah. Yep. Did all the heavy lifting. Exactly. In industry, that does not happen. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen. And it really doesn't happen if I come to you and I say, look, Joey, that really was bad today. Who's it? I want to know the name of the person who ruined that exercise and caused those unsafe activities to occur.
Planning of exercise, my responsibility, sir.
Exactly. I'm on top of it. We've already done the hot wash on it. We're already taking action to make the corrections. But it turns out it was a resource issue. I'm responsible. I didn't put enough resources down there. They did the best they could, but it's my responsibility. Because that's how you're taught, right? Your troops, your soldiers, your airmen, your sailors, your civilians, they get the credit. Your boss is going to commend you, but he or she is going to expect you to immediately turn the credit to your subordinates. And if it's not good news, and your boss is out for blood, you're going to, sir, it's my responsibility. I'll take care of it. I'll take the hit.
I feel at some point you want to know what the root cause was. And like, look, I know you're doing the right thing, saying it was your fault, but like, what actually happened? Like, I want to know.
Yep. Especially if there's an investigation, a formal investigation required. But even then, you still empower that subordinate leader by saying, got it, thank you very much, just as I expected you would. You're taking full responsibility. But you need to know that I also expect a full report once you've completed your investigation. I'm reinforcing you and empowering you. I still have faith in you. I still trust you. You did exactly as I expected you would. You took the responsibility. But now, you know, well, I'm not done with this yet. I've got to go investigate this and get the details and provide a briefing for the boss. But you're the one that's going to give the briefing, too. Now, you're not going to go pick an additional subordinate and run them in front of the boss, right? You're going to do it. Exactly. That's how I'd handle it.
So there are also times you can get to a root cause analysis that may tip the hand on about what happened, but keep it equipment generated and not necessarily put a focus directly on an individual.
Yeah.
But still develop the root cause analysis.
Let the truth lead you where it will.
Yeah, sometimes you can just lay the facts out and without necessarily using a name or a person.
Absolutely.
But that stack of equipment, it's relatively certain to your boss.
Right.
So you can kind of get around, work it to a certain extent in how you deliver the bad news and how you work through the root cause analysis.
It's my opinion that,
Not
yeah.
I hit the wrong button, but we found some issues with this
Right.
equipment. We had some setting issues. You can at least take ownership.
Whatever the truth is, right? But what I think as a leader, the mistake too many make, it's one thing to be firm and stiffen your voice a little bit, especially when people are endangered. But it is, in my view, it is always, I'm saying always wrong to get angry. It's okay to stiffen up and say things like, I'm sorry to hear that, I'm disappointed. I don't need to scream that at you. I just stuck a knife in your chest by saying that to you, right? Find out what happened and let me know. But to scream and yell as a leader today with an all-volunteer force, what? Who made you God? You know, one of the pieces of advice I get every time the Army comes out with its new BG list, I always call the signal guys and gals who are on that list, and I always give them 3 pieces of advice. The first piece of advice is to them, you didn't get better looking because you're on this promotion list. 2, you didn't get smarter. You know, I've known you for a long time, and you've never been the smartest person in the room, and you're not now. They're always going to be, especially the young people who work for you, there are going to be a lot of them who are a lot smarter than you. Find out who they are and listen to them. And the third piece of advice is, sergeants still matter. As you get up senior in rank, the chorus of NCOs around you, because their focus is on troops. And you get up to certain levels, and in the Air Force there are command master chiefs, right? Is that Chief Master Sergeant, and master chiefs are the Navy. And in the Army, it's command sergeant major. I think that's also in the Marine Corps, command sergeant major. But there's only one of those around. You as a senior field grade officer, much less as a flag officer, there's one around you. Seek them out. Their opinion matters a lot. They have always been there to advise the commander. And just because you've become, you've been doing it for 25 years, you're a commissioned officer, you've got medals, you're getting promoted, you're this, you're that, you're in command, blah, blah, blah. Right. Listen to your sergeants. And in the civilian world, find who those people are who work for you, who are calm, knowledgeable, and bring them into your inner circle. And you'll be surprised. The word will get out. You don't need to tell everybody, Karen's my go-to person when I need something extra advice, and I want everybody to know that. No, people will find out. Why does the boss say, yeah, I got that. I need to think about this some. Karen, what do you think? And so other people start getting the message, oh, she obviously matters to him. Well, why? Well, because she's smart, calm, she thinks things through, she's thoughtful, she's logical, she's unemotional. Whatever the qualities are that, as a leader, always seek advice from others. You're not the smartest person in the room. You're not the most experienced person in the room, and you sure as heck didn't get better looking because the board selected you to be a general. And by the way, I say that to men and women because nothing gets flag officers in trouble more than that problem. Okay, third quote. Who wants to read the third quote for me? Go ahead, Kate.
If you take out the team and teamwork, it's just work. Now, who wants that? Matthew Woodring Stover.
You know who that is? You ever heard of Lucas Films? What are they famous for? Star Wars.
Did you just call me a nerd? Or something.
I love Star Wars movies. Call me a nerd. I'm proud to be one. Guess who wrote Star Wars? Guess who the writer was?
Matthew Woodring Stover.
So if you go home tonight and they say, what'd you learn these past 3 days? At least you can say you learned that. The screenwriter who wrote Star Wars. In fact, he won a huge award of some kind, and I forget the details, but I think it was the one about the Sith. The first time the Sith, what was the Star Wars movie, the title? Something of the Sith, Rise of the Sith or something. Revenge of the Sith. Thank you, David. But and he won some big award for that. But what a great statement! If you take the team out of teamwork, it's just work, and who wants that? Wow, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Who wants to go to work? You know, one of the great things about this class, I think, is how we try to get you all talking to one another and talking, to me. How we begin sharing in just a few days. You know, the chemistry in here is really good, and our willingness to share. And don't you want to work in that kind of environment too? As a leader, you can do that by simply getting people to talk and to share and to promote this idea that we're all in this together. Let's do the best we can. Let's pull together as a team. So it's not just work, it's teamwork. Okay, next quote.
Find a group of people who challenge and inspire you. Spend a lot of time with them, and it will change your life forever. Amy Poehler.
Yeah, anybody know who that is? Saturday Night Live, Amy Poehler.
I like your paragraph behind it.
Yeah. I don't care anything for her politics. I don't know anything about her personal life, but she's a Hollywood star that, I'm not going to ask her out, that's for sure. But I got to tell you, I think she's right. And that's why I kind of picked that quote. I think she's right. Read it one more time. Surround yourself with who?
Find a group of people who challenge and inspire you. Spend a lot of time with them, and it will change your life forever.
Yeah. Anybody got a comment about that? That one's almost so straightforward, but maybe you never really thought about it. The power of teamwork comes from surrounding yourself with people who challenge you and inspire you at the same time. If you watched that film with Admiral McCraven carefully and SEAL teams, and then you saw that happening. And what a beautiful thing it is when he talks about the munchkins in there. Okay, last quote.
If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Isaac Newton.
Yeah, Isaac Newton. Pretty famous name, right? Pretty smart guy. What about the rest of those people there? Einstein? Hawkins? Michelangelo? Galileo? It occurs to me, I just dreamed up a few names off the top of my head when I was writing this paper. I should include smart women in there too, like the inventor of the antibiotics for pneumonia. Who was that? Marie. Boy, we're all so bad at history these days. We're getting so good at STEM that we forgot history. Yeah. Farrah, you telling me something, or your wrist hurts? Oh, she's back there going, what are you saying to me? You're communicating something. What is it? The thing is, in my experience, the thing that I am most proud of in both my business and military careers is not the things that I have personally accumulated, be it money or recognition. None of that really, frankly, is my personal hot button. What is my personal hot button is the success that the people who have worked for me have had in business, and especially in the military. 9 of the current Army signal generals of 12 that are in the Army worked for me when I was either a battalion or a brigade commander. In other words, my name was on their paper. I know them all well. I'm in constant contact with them. Why? I'm still their mentor. And that's the point of this. As you are out promoting this sense of team in the organizations that you're in, your personal team of mentors, of mentees that you're going to be mentoring as you get more and more experienced, and by that I'm saying you're going to get older. You can't help getting, that's my theory, can't help getting older, but I'm never going to get old. That's me, Peter Pan. But your reach and expansion is going to go so much larger in how you manage that environment, recognizing that what you do with the circle of people in your team that you touch every day, you're not going to see the second, third, fourth to the nth permutation of your influence and reach. Is this making any sense? Picture a pebble. If I'm standing here and I'm looking at these little crazy circles on here, let's imagine I'm standing over a pond and I drop a pebble. And what's going to happen? It's going to hit, and there's going to be this initial ripple, right? It's going to start spreading out. Well, eventually that ripple is not only going to touch the immediate sides of the pond, it's going to hit and reflect back and go somewhere else and make contact here and reflect out again and come back and make contact here. Eventually, the ripples from that one pebble in the pond, regardless of its size, if you believe the laws of physics, that who wrote them? Einstein, Newton, very smart people. That one pebble is going to create ripples that eventually are going to touch every single inch in the pond. Because the energy introduced into that cannot dissipate to zero, if you believe the laws of physics as they are. Another example, and I think I mentioned this one in the paper. Have you ever seen one of those things where it's a whole gymnasium full of dominoes, and it all starts with the first one when someone goes tick. And it goes tick, 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 tick. The thing is that the last domino that falls never met, never knew, never will the first domino. Your influence and reach as leaders, especially as rising stars who are going to get more and more responsible positions where you may only be supervising 6 people now, where you're touching them. But when those 6 people go out into their world, who are they interacting with? I mean, think about it. They're going to go home to who? Their family. And their spouse or their children will interact with others. Think of what happens when, and you know this happens, when you raise your children right and they are faced with situations in the midst of other kids their age asking them or coercing them to do something wrong, and they say, no, that's not right, because in the back of their head they're saying, you know what, my dad warned me about this. I'm not going to do that. And I'm telling you I'm not going to do it because it's not the right thing to do. That has, you just touched a second order effect. Kids that you'll never meet, never know. And they may affect others. I could go on and on with examples of this. As leaders, recognize that your reach extends far beyond the first order effect of people you're talking to. So if you are a screamer and you yell at everybody and you're irrational or you're so emotional that you slam your coffee cup down until the handle breaks off, and yes, I had a boss that did that once. If you're so upset and you're yelling in somebody's face so ugly and so loud that they can't really hear what you're saying, you know, your spittle's dripping off their face because you're out of control. What kind of a leader is that? You ever known one like that? I sure have. Now, I'm a place in my life where I just don't put up with it anymore. You just shut the hell up and sit down. But you can't do that yet. Well, not in every case. You can do it to your children. You can do it to your spouse, your friends. You have a circle. I mean, your reach is, if you have a subordinate or a peer that's doing that, but when it's a superior, sometimes you just got to learn from it. I got to take this. What I'm learning is I'm never going to be like this. Never. I had a boss in Germany who was awful. Yet the Army promoted him to colonel. Made him a brigade commander. And I was his S3. You know what the S3 is? Same as an A3, I guess. Right? Ops guy? You're the ops guy, right? N3. Oh, N3, sorry. Yeah. I keep looking over here and seeing fatigues and think I'm not reading name tags very well.
Navy's camouflaging better.
I know. Congratulations. Just in time for the Army to change its mind again and go buy something else. That's why I hope we settle down soon. I'm running out of room in my closet for all the uniforms. Because I always go out and buy one. Because I'm always waiting for that call. You know, my ruck's packed. I'm ready to rock and roll. You boys get out there and get in trouble, give me a call. You don't even have to issue me a weapon. I'll bring my own. All of them. I can arm this room. Boy, wouldn't we be something? Hey, so always remember, your reach as a leader goes way beyond the first tier of people that you touch. And not only is that true in this time span, but in the future time spans as well. That reach goes on and on and on. That ripple in the pond continues to touch more and more of the pond. Okay? This has been about teamwork, and now basically until now and over the next few minutes, we're going to transition to your PLP. And I want to talk about this just for a second. I said this to you on the first hour of the first day, and I don't know how many of you were actually listening at that point. You were probably just sort of still dazed at having come from the parking lot and thought you were fortunate to have found a parking spot. I don't know whether you were listening or not. The purpose of the personal leadership philosophy is that if you have thoughts about leadership that are powerful enough and true enough that you believe them to be true, and that being true, you intend to incorporate them into your role as a leader, wherever, in whatever environment you find yourself as a leader, whether it's on the job, we typically think of on the job, but the fact of the matter is that your role as a leader probably extends well beyond that. In every phase, every facet, every organization, you'd be surprised, because I have learned something about all of you. And most of you in this class right now, in fact, I'm not even going to say most, I'm going to say all of you have certain natural instincts in terms of leadership. I can see it in you. I mean, I've been around a day or two, and I've learned to read people and their instincts pretty quickly. So the question becomes, you know how you feel about leadership. Why you want to keep it to yourself? Why don't you write it down? I can't read that. Why? Says who? She matters. I surrender. I'm not going to argue that. Everybody's got a boss. Even see now, is that right? So here's a lady whose only job is to keep up with the room keys that we signed for the conference. I have one to this room. I'm not going to argue with her.
Sorry, don't shoot the messenger.
Exactly. What were we talking about?
We were just talking about filling the room with ammo.
Weapons for everybody.
Right now, your leadership.
Sidearms and rifles. Write it down. And when you write it down, you do that with a purpose. First of all, there's something about writing something down that makes beliefs become ingrained in humans. If we just say them, we forget them. We forget. When we write things down, whether with a pen in the old-fashioned way or with a keyboard today, we remember it. It becomes the act of expressing in writing a thought, cements that thought. So if you believe certain things are true, and if you believe those true things are important enough to you that they help describe your leadership style, either the as is or the to be state that you want it to become, then I submit that writing it down becomes important. Now I want to tell you why I believe this. When I was in the 7th Special Forces Group, I was the support battalion operations officer. My job was to put the support packages together that went out with the Special Forces battalions when they went out on deployments and globally. So this was a pretty important job, and it was a major's position, and I was a captain, and I was doing a pretty good job, but I was about to get thrust into another 04 position, and I went to my boss and I said, I don't want that. I really want to command a company. An 03 should command. Right, David? Now, you just came out of command, didn't you? Yeah. It's important for your development professionally. You can't skip command, right? If you're going to move forward in the Army as an officer, you got to have a command as a captain, a company command or something equivalent. And I really wanted to be the signal company commander. And everybody, which was a part of this support battalion. Support battalion had logistics, aviation, intelligence, communications, and supply and service. So we would tailor a package of all of that capability to go with each battalion that was dependent upon the mission that they were deploying on. Makes sense. I was good at that. But I wanted to command a company. They wanted me to go be the group signal officer for the 7th Special Forces Group. I said, no. I'm going to get so far down this road, I'm going to miss the opportunity to command at the 03 level. And I don't want to, I really want to be with the troops. I know this company well. I know the commander that's there now. I know where all the skeletons are hidden. I know everything I need to know about them. I'm experienced. I'm knowledgeable. I'm good at what I do. Surely you want me to be the next commander of the signal company when it's time for the current guy to rotate. And my boss said, that makes a lot of sense. No. But Colonel Olshevik, Stan Olshevik, was a 9-year-old survivor who was in the partisan groups in Czechoslovakia against the Nazis and later on against the communists when the Russians liberated what is now called Czechland. It was called Czechoslovakia back then. And he had been adopted by an American service man after World War II, came to America. Now here he is. He's the deputy commander of the 7th Special Forces Group, and he's going to be my senior raider because the support battalion commander is going to be my raider if I'm the battalion, if I'm the signal company commander. And his boss, his raider, is my senior raider, which was the deputy group commander. And he said, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yes, yeah, you're fully qualified. You're best qualified. No. I went, sir, I don't understand. He said, well, until you do the following. I said, what's that? You have to prove to me that you really understand what leadership is. He said, I think you instinctively have it. But I'm going to make you verbalize it to me, and I'm going to make you write it down. And not only that, after you've done that, and I'm happy with it, and the group commander agrees with me, we will then decide when or if you get to command that company. Because if you are the one chosen, you're going to have to present that to them. You're going to post it on the bulletin board. You're going to read it out loud to them on the day you take command. And you're going to post it on the bulletin board as orders number 1. This is my personal philosophy of leadership. I don't ever want there to be a soldier in your company that doesn't have complete confidence. They know exactly who their commander is. They know the kind of officer he is. They know the kind of soldier he is. They know exactly the kind of person you are. Now, you did this in less than 3 days, and you wrote something probably pretty good, maybe real good. It took me 2 months of coming to see him every Wednesday night until I got a document that he found acceptable. Because I kept leaving something out. And he kept adding it, and that's what we would discuss about. What you see in front of you, my personal leadership philosophy that you have as an example of where's it located, Farrah? It's behind tab 6. Is not entirely different. It's probably 85% exactly what I wrote in 1975. Because he was right. He taught me, he revealed things to me I didn't even know about myself. And he made me write them down so I wouldn't forget. And he wanted me to read it out loud to my soldiers in formation and posted on the bulletin board. You know, the bulletin board in the Army used to be the place. It was the permanent location of orders, schedules, had the force. If the first sergeant posted the duty roster, and he did, on the bulletin board, it had the force of orders. You tell me, I better check it, because if you are on duty and you miss, right? You remember those days? It's all done electronically now, I know. But bulletin boards exist electronically still, don't they? I mean, the first sergeant says, by the way, specialist, you're on guard duty tonight. If you say, gosh, no one told me, that's not going to get you very far, is it? It's every soldier's duty to check the bulletin board. Well, it was true then, except it was all in writing on the wall. So, what you see there is mine. It has been changed some over time. I've learned over time. The basic values that are there, things like I believe that being in charge, being the boss, I'm going to switch from command talk to boss talk. Being the boss is a sacred duty. The lives and of your people are in your hands. And I'm not talking about just the heartbeat. The heartbeat of them. I'm talking about their professional and personal lives, their wherewithal, their ability to pay their bills, their ability to take time off to go on vacation. All the bosses have incredible control over all of that, whether they admit it or not. They have tremendous influence over the people that are subordinate to them. You can't just dismiss that at all. And so, that one is mine. And I don't know if it was useful to you today or whether it's useful going forward, but in every organization I have gone to, including businesses, I've pulled out my personal philosophy of leadership, and I read it to my immediate subordinates, and I give them copies of it, and I post it to the blog post to the organ. I mean, I can hear Colonel Oshevik in my ear. Tell them what you believe about yourself and why you believe what you believe about them and what you think is important. Tell them and write it down and publish it. It's now your contract with them as their leader. They know exactly what you expect of them, and they especially know what they can expect from you. That's why in the leadership forum, I give you this rare opportunity. What you're learning here now is not something that's common anymore. People don't often ask you to do this anymore. It used to be a requirement, I found out, for captains who took command of companies in the Army. Do you still have to do that when you took your command?
It wasn't a leadership philosophy, it was a
Command philosophy. Yeah. So, I don't know, does the Navy have such a thing?
Yes, sir. Going into command, going through the COXO Leadership School, there's a section where you do command philosophy.
What about when you become the Chief Protocol Officer? No one asks you, by the way, tell us, put it in writing how you feel about being in charge of this important function and what your people can expect from you and what you expect from them.
We don't put it in writing like this, but I do sit down with my staff. So.
And all I'm asking you now is to go the extra step and write it down and share it with them in writing. Comes a contract. I've even known people who have left the TLF and actually signed it and handed it to the people who signed it and handed it back. You know, let's exchange. Let's make this a real contract. Boy, that's deep and profound belief, right? So if you don't mind, let's start with your PLP. Would you share yours with us?
Sure.
Thanks.
Keep in mind, I was not here for your hour of discussion on the first day. So I kind of went into
What's your
this writing.
excuse? Okay. No, that's good.
I do not have one. I honestly
If you read all of the content that I provided you, you're as
I think
up to date as everybody.
so. We'll see what you think.
Or what everybody thinks.
Whatever.
Remember, we're all in this together. I'm not grading your homework here. We're all in this together. We're all here to help each other be better, right? Okay, go ahead.
In my career, I've been fortunate to be surrounded by tremendous leaders with different leadership styles. They have all taught me many things, of which leadership is not just a role you take on, but in order to be a true leader involves principles you must also live by. Because after all, it is not something you can fake. My personal leadership philosophy strikes a healthy balance between leader and manager and truly puts people first. First and foremost, a great leader harnesses motivation in others and has the ability to translate company vision into reality. Second, a strong leader knows an organization's truest asset inside and out, its people. Third, a smart leader is able to manage as well as lead their team. And finally, a humble and authentic leader owns failures, deflects recognition to the people who make it happen, and communicates early and often. So then I divide it up into things. So the visionary. The power of a vision statement should not be underestimated. In fact, as a leader, it is my responsibility to ensure the team is aware of the organization's vision statement and what our ideal future looks like. An organization without a vision statement is like having a staff operating in the blind and not knowing the direction in which they are headed. Visionary leaders remove the blindfold and use a clear vision statement to inspire action among the staff so they develop strategy on how to get there. Whether the statement communicates organization values or goals, the staff will take action towards that vision with the right leader in place. As a visionary leader, I will always look beyond myself and remain selfless in action and ensure the vision statement is clear and evolves as necessary with times. My contract to my staff is to always be an honest and fair communicator of that vision and empower them to develop strategies to get there. The investor. One of my longtime mentors, General James McConville, once told me, invest in people and they will invest in you. I have used that as a guiding principle ever since, and it has never failed me. Investing in others can mean many things to many people, but to me as a leader, it means talking to your staff and being an active listener, truly getting to know them and what's important to them. It means investing in your employees' careers by sending them to training or mentoring them and finding out what their career goals are and helping them achieve those goals. It means empowering them to make decisions and to lead projects and show them you have trust in their skills. It means that I am okay with training someone to one day take my job, because after all, if I'm not doing that, in my mind I'm failing as a leader. And as a leader, I also recognize that I do not know everything, and that I will always strive to not just be a teacher, but also to learn from my staff and to seek educational opportunities that make me better. Like this. As a leader, I know that I must be mindful of my temperament and at all times, I know that I must be mindful of my temperament and at all times and trust and respect my staff unless someone has shown trust cannot be given. The leader versus manager. We all know there are clear differences between leader and a manager, but in my mind, a great leader is a healthy combination of both. Knowing your team, knowing their capabilities, and knowing available resources while being able to leverage those assets without micromanaging is a perfect example of that kind of balance. A leader measures progress while a manager creates the tools of which to measure that progress. Why can't it be one and the same person? As a leader, it has always been a goal of mine to master the art of managing organizational tasks while leading people. Some people say that anyone can manage, but not everyone can lead. I say not everyone can do both. Leaders are in charge of their environment and align their team. And with the right team in place, I believe leadership and management can align. As a leader, I will set direction of the team and empower staff to be project managers and plan the details. As a leader, I will continue to encourage and create a trusting environment for employees to think outside the box, but always know that their job entails to manage expectations. Furthermore, I will never ask a member of my staff to do something I'm not willing to do myself. And finally, the communicator. Communicate early and communicate often is something I live by. You can never over-communicate with your team. There will never be a single point of failure in my organization, and I'll communicate and task fairly across the board to lessen the chances of that occurring. Communication is key to a team's success, whether it is face-to-face mentoring, team meetings, or newsletters. Keeping the lines open allows leaders to get out their vision and for staff to communicate their strategies. But the bigger picture of communication can also serve as a recognition of good work, awards, and highlighting positive and sometimes negative feedback. When a team or an organization does something great, a good leader deflects recognition to the team and accredits the success to those who did the work. I believe in surrounding myself with good, smart people and creating a positive work environment for them to achieve success. Recognizing effort and accomplishment is one of those many things that goes a long way with employees. There is no I in team. It should not just be a saying, it should be a mantra of leaders. And on the flip side, any negative feedback is one I own as a leader and shelter the team from when it comes from higher. As As I continue to grow in business and life and as a leader, I know I will continue to develop my leadership philosophy. Basic leadership principles and characteristics are given, but lessons learned will shape my beliefs and my philosophy. I will be exposed to other leaders who will also mentor and shape my beliefs, but at the core, I will continue to be honest, authentic, and respectful of my leadership, and in turn, a strong leader for my team.
Wow. Wow. If we had that show on TV where the gold leaf stuff flutters out of the ceiling right now, I would say, you're going to L.A. That was great. That was great. Thank you. Wow.
We're going to go back and forth across the room, right?
Yeah, who wants to follow that? Nobody, right? But I'm going to pick somebody. Okay. Joey.
Yes, sir.
Somebody had to be next.
Yes, sir. Mine will be maybe a little more extreme, but I don't know how about your dialect. Your approach really will put you. Shut up and say mine. I titled it my not quite and probably never complete leadership philosophy. It is my belief that leadership is a gift. When received from an organization, is reflected in title and authority. When received from an individual or a collection of individuals, is reflected in trust and attendance. In either case, one does not necessitate nor require the other, but each has its own strengths and challenges. Despite the titles and perceived authority being what is most often associated with leadership and most often deliberately pursued, it is the trust and attendance that will best enable any leader and team to continue to succeed. The values and principles I believe that are the most important to my concept of leadership are the welcome acceptance of accountability beyond oneself, the ability to be and act decisively in alignment with the desired vision, maintenance of internal and external integrity, and the active empowerment of those being led. And at which point I just start going down to breaking these down. But accountability beyond oneself, an individual unwilling to accept accountability to align with the authority or trust they have been granted will quickly lose those gifts at the expense of looking out for themselves. Decisiveness and alignment with vision. Leadership without direction, however general and connected power, without an eager willingness and desire to steer towards a future state, eventually becomes apparent the only benefactor is the individual holding the power. Internal and external integrity. A leader should be true to those who lead, to those who are led, and true to himself and herself. The only thing that may be more difficult to do than leading those that don't trust you is trying to lead when you can't trust yourself. Empowerment of the team and the individual. Receipt of a gift begs return. A successful leader is the leader who has championed the team and the individuals that comprise it, such that they have adopted the leader's vision as their own and can envision their own path to it and their own path beyond it. I aspire to behave as a leader by driving and operating out at the principles of courage, fairness, honesty, and humility, and not out of convenience, ambition, opportunity, or power. Leaders are made and reflected in their actions, and as such, I must be willing to invest myself in the support of the team and the vision. Encouraging positivity. While I may not be able to choose or change my situation, I can always choose how I react and who I am in that situation. I and we will not be overcome, but we will strive, learn, adapt, and progress. We must be fair and exhibit fairness. Service to the team and the vision is best served by impartiality and an egalitarian approach. All deserve equal rights and opportunities. Honesty. Leadership does not mean that I know everything required in a given jump paragraph. Despite potential temptation, I must always seek to speak truthfully, say what I mean, act in accordance, and not get by on a mission or misdirection. Without this, I cannot expect those who work with me to do likewise, or to work with me, period. Humility. Leadership does not mean that I know everything required in a given area, or know any more than any member of the team. Leadership is not a gift you are born with, it is a gift you are granted and can be revoked. Hard work. Hard work and sacrifice is the price required to achieve greatness. Some may receive greatness, but that will be a different conversation. I will invest myself in the full extent of my capability, and I will not expect those on my team to do what I am unwilling to do. At which point I start to evolve a little bit. What I expect of my subordinates. Personal leadership. I trust you, and I trust your capability, and you do not need me to make decisions within where you are assigned. As a leader, I can inform the alignment of your work and the vision, but I am unlikely to exceed your expertise within your area of law. Communicate. We see more than any one of us. Share what you see, what you're worried about, and what opportunities are out there. Lastly, commitment and care for your people and for the team. I start to break down a little bit. Went through the questions, but they don't read. It's just me going through a list of ideas.
Yeah, that's okay. That's great. You're off to a great start. Man, that's from the heart. I feel you, brother. I love the read that sentence again about we communicate, not I. What was that?
Communication. We see more than any one of us.
We see more than any one of us can see. By themselves, I suspect what you mean. Yeah.
Share what you see, what you're worried about, what opportunities.
Yeah.
And I mean to continue.
That really speaks to me. That's really good. Well done. Good start. Good start. I look forward to reading the finished product. So, what do you think, Andrea? You feel up to sharing yours with us?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, do I have an option?
Huh?
I said, do I have an option?
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of, okay, never mind, here we go. So leadership is both a responsibility and an opportunity to guide, motivate, and influence those around me. Leadership is not limited to a position or role, nor a place or time. Leadership is part of who I am. It is that instinctive response to a scenario which requires the courage of a leader, whether in a position designated as such or not. I am also a loyal follower, which is equally important in supporting and meeting common goals. Excuse me, I always don't breathe when I'm reading that. As a leader, my sphere of influence is not limited to the people with whom I interact on a daily basis. Leadership is taking charge in a moment of need, taking the suitcase off the belt for the mother with her small child at the airport. It's waiting until the walkway appears at the crosswalk because there are two small children standing next to you. It's that tough love to show your child so they understand they are not in fact in charge and able to do everything they want. It's that hard right to take when you know they're going your way, and it's continuing to do the right thing when no one is watching. A leader takes charge when the commander goes down in battle and the troops need guidance, direction, and motivation. A leader is someone that you follow without hesitation or question, or maybe without even realizing it. Sorry. My leadership style is adaptive to the individual, mission, or scenario. I participate, delegate, observe, analyze, assist, and/or direct as required by the situation. Each member of the team contributes unique talents and capabilities to the mission, also having individual personalities, strengths, and weaknesses. Some teammates require more management, others more motivation. Some more recognition, and others more independence to grow and succeed as productive members of the organization. Recognizing and maximizing the team's diversity and strengths is key to effective leadership. So, I kind of broke down some of my principles. Principles of leadership: caring. One must genuinely care for the mission, people, objectives, outcomes, performance, quality, and everything in between in order to be effective. Courage, standing up for the team and what is right regardless of possible outcomes. Integrity, always being honest and straightforward, whether good or bad news about something, tell it like it is. Accountability, hold myself and those I'm responsible for, in action or decision, accountable for outcomes and results. This is one of the most fundamental forms of leadership that can truly make or break success of an organization. Focus areas: mission, gain and constantly improve my understanding of the mission, my position, the team, stakeholders, and organization from the lowest to the highest level. Vision, develop an ambitious yet attainable vision that aligns with the mission and objectives of the organization, as well as appropriately aligning with the efforts of the team. Purpose, understanding the functions and principles of the organization, team, and stakeholders in support of the mission, and in our case, the warfighter, and how each function fits in the overall scope of the mission and vision is key to our existence and fuels motivation. Communication, articulate and ensure the team and individual understands the mission, vision, and purpose, provide clear objectives, guidance, and feedback to those expected to perform actions towards the objectives that I manage. And continuous improvement, constantly seek opportunities for professional development for my team and myself. That kind of reflects that. So part of this I sent actually to my team, so I kind of.
Oh, really? Did you get some feedback from them?
Yeah, some of them printed it out and hung it up in their cubes or sent it to
Really?
them.
Did that surprise you? That they did that?
No, they were really excited, and I got a lot of good feedback when I did
Wonderful.
the second week, and I said, hey, here's kind of
great.
And so I told them I'm a demanding person and leader, but I promise I will always be more demanding of myself and striving to provide the best leadership and performance for the team. I have a work hard, play hard mentality and believe that team building events are equally as important as meeting mission objectives. I appreciate everyone's perspectives and feedback, and I'm always open to recommendations on improvements to processes and procedures. Leadership is an opportunity to inspire, engage, unite, and shape positive change in the world around you. The investment in people and teams is worth every minute, penny, and challenge to build morale, cohesion, and efforts toward common goals and mission success. People constantly manage various tasks and responsibilities throughout their lives and jobs. As a leader, my job is to continue to be a good mom, which is a manager of managers, that motivates and influences, that's what they call me, mom, that motivates and influences a team to do their best and serve the best interests of the organization and its customers. I am consistent and impartial, and I am a consistent and impartial professional that appreciates diversity and serves the best interests of all members of the team with the same respect, loyalty, and consideration from the lowest to the highest rank. That's where I left off.
I think, first of all, I think you're a marvelous talent. How many children do you have?
One.
You're a great mom. I know that. Your kid's going to grow up right.
That was the scariest job that I thought. I just didn't think I would do a good job. I'm actually surprised myself. I'm good at other things.
I'm
but I
not.
thought Mom was
I'm not.
like,
Is anybody surprised that she's a good mom? I'm not. That's great. I'm so glad that you are already seeking feedback from your folks. And they are already blown away that their boss sent them something and they're putting it up in the cube because they got a contract with you now.
Oh, this is a wild fact.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. I can't wait to see the final product when you're ready. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Corey, how about you? That's okay.
My leadership philosophy is based on the principles that I learned through the study of both strong and weak leaders, and from what I learned in the 2018 AFCEA TechNet Asia Pacific Leadership Forum sessions. I believe in the servant leadership style, in that I will never ask those that report to me to do anything that I would do myself. I lead by being in front. I will lead in the front in order to see our destination and our challenges, but close enough to those I lead in order to be approachable and share in the work that needs to be done. Success is yours and failure is all mine. I lead by being a good listener. You can talk about anything that is important to your well-being. I realize I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so I will listen at least twice as much as I speak. I lead by being honest. I will be a leader you can trust because I keep my word and not withhold important information that will help you be the best, no matter how uncomfortable. I lead by setting goals. I will set goals which are measurable and achievable. Measurement of progress and taking corrective action assures success. I place great value in integrity. Integrity is not a judgment call or a policy. It is being more than honest. I place great value in intelligence and competency. Complex challenges require people that can fully understand the benefit of win-win solutions and the ability to implement them. I place great value in trust. Trust is earned by delivering results without excuses for failure when it comes. Transparency increases trust. Things I do not accept. I do not accept lying and stealing, whether that's property or time. I do not accept foul, offensive, abusive language and action. Would you do that in front of your mom? I do not accept less than your best effort. I will learn what you're capable of and challenge you accordingly. I expect that when you come to me with a problem, bring multiple solutions. Ask questions, get me engaged, and keep me informed. Give and take feedback. I expect you to tell the truth in a timely, accurate manner. Don't delay bad news. I expect you to be proactive in your work and take pride in it. Do your best. Fix it now. Don't wait to be told. Don't wait for it to go away. I expect you to focus on activities, on getting results, meeting goals, and helping others do the same by sharing your knowledge. Build credibility through success, and others will trust you. And finally, I expect you to be a team player and a team leader. Let's do it together.
I think that's great. I don't know why you call that the Cliff Notes.
It's short.
See, I like that. I think it's your style. I think your style is that those I statements. I expect. I will. I see. I communicate. I believe. I think that's a very powerful, style. I think you're on the right track there. In fact, I'd say you're probably 99% there. I mean, I don't know much more that you would want to change about that. Just hearing it for the first time. And what do you guys think? It's pretty good, huh?
Very clear.
Yeah. It's a good style. Good for you.
It's the first time I've ever written it down.
Really?
Right. That putting it down, I'm already thinking of things like, I didn't put something in there that's
Forgot
really
this.
important to me.
Yeah.
It's definitely a living document.
And the thing is, when you say things like expect, I forget exactly how you said it, but it was give feedback. Expect to get feedback from me and give me feedback, or something like that. What was that statement?
Keep me informed, give and take feedback.
Give and take feedback. You got to make sure that you are open to that and receptive to that. Because if someone says, well, sir, I'd like to give you some feedback, you can't say, I'm too busy right now. You gotta be open to receiving it. Because if you say you're going to be open and you want feedback from them and they try to give it to you and the first time they do, you turn them down or rebuff it, what do they think now? What does that reflect on the rest of what you wrote? Well, he probably doesn't mean any of that. He obviously didn't mean that because he asked for feedback. And it may be that all they want to do is vent. You gotta make time. When you're a leader, sometimes your hours are longer than everybody else's, and part of that is giving people a chance to come to you and vent. Maybe they're mad at you about something, or maybe they're upset about something at home, or maybe they're upset with their coworker, or maybe they think, Schmedlap isn't working as hard, and I'm having to pick up the slack in my job, and yet he got the 3-day award for time off, and I didn't. Why isn't the truth getting to you that he's the slack off and I'm the hard worker? I mean, you never know what's going to go on when you get feedback, and you got to be open to it and not argumentative about it or respond outrageously to it. If it's wrong, I mean, it's okay to quietly say, well, I hear you, but I'm not sure that's quite correct. Have you thought about this? So there are all kinds of ways, but that whole feedback loop thing is so easy to say and sometimes really hard to swallow. So, good, but that's really good. Good technique, good style. I wouldn't have thought that of you. Now I know something new about you. Thanks. David?
Overview. Leadership means different things to different people. The intent of this document is to lay out the quintessential components of what I see as paramount to successful leadership. I've made a decision to be a leader and must therefore reflect on how I can be an excellent leader. Responsibilities of excellent leaders. Very simply, leaders have 3 core responsibilities. 1, the responsibility to create a vision rooted in personal passion that drives the very existence or life of the organization. 2, create a culture of unwavering commitment to the growth, development, and success of the people that comprise the organization. And 3, establish an uncompromising moral ethic within the organization. Vision. Vision unites individuals into teams. Without a vision, one cannot be a leader because there is nowhere to lead people. A vital first step to successful leadership is establishing a vision for the organization. The next sub-step is inspiring the collective to invest themselves into the organization's vision, which starts with being personally inspired by that vision. And finally, excellent leaders define success as it relates to the vision. Culture. It's a cliche, but it's true. People are our greatest resource. Every good leader recognizes the value of people and therefore must personally invest themselves into their people. Investing in people starts with knowing them, recognizing their value, developing them, and finally empowering them. Leadership takes courage. Courage not only to risk failure, to bear the risk of subordinate's failure. The key to being personally involved is to assume the risk of your subordinate's failures. These investments into people will create a healthy culture where there is substantial buy-in and a resource that is fully committed to the organization. Moral ethic. The organization must reflect your moral ethic. Without an uncompromising moral ethic, the belief in the organization and its vision will be compromised. An organization requires an unblemished vision or it will fall apart. Attributes of excellent leaders. Excellent leaders are visionaries, inspirational, moral, honest, candid, intolerant, caring, courageous, and fair. Leaders use these attributes to align their organization with their vision and inspire their subordinates to commit themselves to the organization. Conclusion. Excellent leaders are aware of their own strengths and weaknesses and recognize the value of people. As a leader, I must take great pride and ownership in the development of the people who work for me. I believe Jack Welch articulately summarized this understanding, stating, before you are a leader, success is about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is about growing others.
I like your style of almost textbook, and then you switch to an I statement to reflect on that and make it personal. That's a really good technique. Thank you very much. That's good. You're off to a great start. Margot?
Leadership is, at its core, selfless. Leadership means having the courage to step outside of oneself and act in the interest of a greater purpose. My role, I view my role as a leader to be a positive enabler of my team. I'll ensure my teammates enjoy the optimal environment in which to accomplish their jobs. Whether this means removing obstacles, providing guidance, or rolling up my sleeves to help, I will do everything in my power to enable my team to perform at maximum potential. Fundamentals of leadership. Trust and integrity. Trust is earned through consistent, honest, and fair action. Promises must not be broken, which is why promises should not be made lightly. The leader should aim to earn the trust of all their personnel as well as give them the trust they deserve. Accountability. A leader is responsible for all personnel and actions taken in his or her organization. This means taking personal ownership of the mistakes and celebrating the successes as a team. Moral courage. Perhaps the most difficult but also crucial traits of a good leader, moral courage means standing up for and doing the right thing despite negative backlash. Having moral courage means not being afraid of failure and accepting personal risk when someone else's dignity is at risk. Expectations of myself and others. Honesty. True feedback is invaluable to a team and will keep it on course to mission accomplishment. Without honesty, problems cannot be resolved and trust will be broken. Honesty keeps an organization and people healthy and humble. Professionalism. Mutual respect and protection of every human being's dignity is paramount. Behavior that is consistent with maintaining mutual respect and an organization's core values and professional behavior. Preparation, timeliness, attention to detail, and acknowledgement of others are all important aspects of a professional and all directly linked to your respect for others and yourself. Communication. Open and clear communication is one of the single most important aspects of a successful team. Conversely, the lack of or miscommunication is at the root of almost all problems. A leader provides clear vision, guidance, and expectations, and team members provide clear and constructive feedback on the state of the team and its goals. Email does not constitute effective communication. It is a helpful way to disseminate information, but it does not replace face-to-face communication. Communication should always remain professional, respectful, and timely. Praise should be public and criticism in private. Take action. Action always speaks louder than words, and I am very action-oriented. A leader must set direction and priorities and gain buy-in from their people on goals, but in the end, accomplishing anything requires decision-making. Rarely is it possible to find a 100% solution. A leader must have the courage to take decisive action, even in the face of unknowns. Though action should never be taken lightly, it must be taken in order to move the organization forward toward its goals. Know the people. People are the heart of an organization and therefore should be valued above all else by a leader. A leader absolutely must know who their people are and allow them to know him or her. This value is shown through recognition and feedback, and most fundamentally through active listening. Authenticity. I added this because of what you wrote. here's what is good and recognizes a conversation as well.
I think it's great. I think it's such a personal expression of who you are. Thank you for making it that way, because if it wasn't, people are going to be, your people will read it and go, who wrote this? So they're going to hear that and they're going to say, oh, well, Margot wrote that. That's who she is. I could see you coming through in that. That's great. Thank you so much. We're just about out of time, and I'm sorry that, has anybody got one that they just have to read, they want to share with everybody else? Because here's the option.
Mark wants to share his, sir.
Who?
Mark.
Oh. I was going to say, Mark left.
He's been here for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah. Here's the option. So, as you see up here, Farrah, can you flick up? Sorry, Chris, you could just flick up to the next slide. We need to cover some things now, and I want to talk just a little bit about the PLP first, though. I want you to send it to me electronically. Finish it. Those of you who are sort of still en route with it, finish it within a week. You should be there if you take more than a week. Send it to me before Thanksgiving, in fact. Don't wait till Black Friday, because you'll be all drugged out shopping and stuff. Go ahead and send it to me. You've got my card, and my card has my phone number. That's my cell phone number. If you call me, make sure you don't block your name when you call me, because if I get unknown, it's going to divert to my spam. So make sure that your name is, your identity is not blocked when you call me, or email me. But attach it to an email in a Word document and send to me at this email address, okay? And if you want, and this is totally optional, if you want, you have the roster of everyone in here and all the email addresses. Share it with your classmates. And we can get this little thing going here. Hey, I got your paper. Thanks so much. Have you thought about this? Start providing some feedback to each other about that. Okay? Now, before you go, Farrah and I have a gift for you. But in order to get your gift, you have to complete the critique sheet, what she said, which is in the back pocket. And in there also is your form to fill out to send to George Mason University. And like all universities, education isn't free. They will ask you for some small amount of money, I think, for them to issue you the documentation for your CEU credit. But you have that form in your folder as well.
Sir, can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
What value does the CEU give me? If it's not tracking in anything that I'm doing, does it make a difference?
You don't have to do it.
No, I got it. I'm looking for feedback to see maybe I should be doing it.
Sometimes civilians get promoted on the basis of that, right?
So otherwise, it wouldn't necessarily have any value. Okay. I got plenty of other value. I was just wondering if there was additional value, and figured there was a wealth of resources.
I had a follow-on question. It was kind of similar.
You know, but it challenges me. We've been doing this for so long, and I can't remember why we started doing it.
So I think I'm in the same boat. It doesn't do anything for me right now. So can I keep this paper?
Sure.
That actually does
Yeah.
for me, and then turn it in?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's got dates on it.
I don't know that it expires. I mean, well, what I'll do is when I do this back in Virginia somewhere, I'll invite them to come and sit in on a class with me, and then maybe they'll have a better appreciation. They can help explain better. I don't know.
So for NDP maps, for example, as one of your elements that your goal is to complete a certain amount of continuing education credits, you can add this into, and then if you're a supervisor of civilians and they're in DP maps, this is part of, these are things you look for, right? So.
Perfect. All right, I learned something. Well played. Thank you very much.
Now, what I'd also like to ask of you is when you go back to your organizations and TNAP 2019 rolls around, talk somebody into coming so that we don't have to come out and have your 4-star bosses yank you out of your job by your ears, as some of you were. But actually go back and talk about it and say, this was frankly a surprising 3 days. Worth the investment of time. You should go. They'll be back next year. And I guess if there was enough of that, Farah, we could come back and do it sooner. But, do this twice a year. I'd get to see you twice a year instead of once a year. But I am going to be starting this as a business because I've had so much feedback from people on the commercial side who have gone back and said, hey, can you come and do this for our business? And I've been saying no. Go find an AFCEA chapter and blah, blah, blah. And some of them don't want to do it that way. They want their own little thing. And I said, well, if I do it for you, then I'm going to have to charge you. And thinking that would back them off. No, they said, well, how much? And I said, well, this much. Okay. I went, well, crap. Now I got to go do it.
You make it so accountable for them or worth it for you, right?
Yeah.
You make a number high enough.
But this is a passion of mine, so I really enjoy doing it. So finish your critique sheets and then take them back there and give them to Farah. Farah, can you bring the books up here so I can give them to people? Farah, can you bring the books up here? Yeah, thanks. So you take your critique sheet to Farah and get a hug, and then you come up here and get a book from me. And then you're done. Oh, is this yours?
That's mine.
Congratulations. This is the best book about being a boss that it's an easy read.
Okay.
I've read it about 4 times now. I read it cover to cover on the plane on the way out here again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's that good a read, and I hope you appreciate the note that's
very
inside,
much.
too.
I really
Good luck to
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
General, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
already got my book
Oh,
from
you did? All right.
Appreciate the words
Good.
in there.
You're welcome.
Great week.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Safe travels.
Grow as a leader. That's what this is all about. Hi, Kate. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I've got 2 for you.
Yes, sir. I've already turned mine in. Thank you.
Oh, and have you?
I got my book already.
Oh, you already got your book already,
Yes,
too?
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. It's been an
All right.
absolute pleasure. I
Well,
look forward
likewise.
to emailing and keeping in touch.
Okay. Let me hear from you.
Hopefully I'll see you. There have been 2 luncheon days now, quite nice. But I needed to, and then there wasn't one this month, right? It's coming down from Wahoo Wahoo, makes it a little harder too. Because they're almost always a chef.
Yes, they're always here.
So my goal is there's no other critical meetings. I can work out of Fort. I've got a desk at Fort Island too. So I can kind of cherry pick a little